Whitney Williams from Guidelight Group. It is my pleasure to present to you the third video in our series on the Self-Determination Program, brought to you by the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. This video is all about the individual budget in the Self-Determination Program. Let's learn more. The purpose of this video is to help you understand what the individual budget is, how individual budgets are determined, how to prepare for the conversation with your regional center about your individual budget, and the steps to get your certified individual budgets. You can follow along in your handout. You can download the companion worksheet that goes with this video to follow along as we walk through the self-determination budget process. Completing the worksheet is optional. It was created to help you better understand your individual budget and discuss your budget needs with your regional center. You might be wondering, what is an individual budget? Your individual budget is the total amount of money that you will have available to purchase services and supports for 1 year. Each person's individual budget is different and based on your specific needs. Your individual budget is determined by the IPP team and certified by the regional center. The starting point of the budget is the amount of money that the regional center spent on your services and supports in the past 12 months. This amount can be adjusted up or down if there are changes in your needs, circumstances, or resources, or if you had prior needs that were unmet. The budget is based on what the regional center would have spent to meet these needs if you stayed in the traditional system. It is reviewed and reset annually. Your budget amount can be changed or adjusted to better meet your needs. Person-centered planning will help you identify whether your budget needs to be changed. Your budget can only be changed to provide funding for services that exist in the traditional system. Once your budget is certified and you are in SDP, you can use the money from your budget to purchase the services and supports that best meet your needs, even if they do not exist in the traditional system. Again, the budget amount can be adjusted up or down if you have a change in your needs, circumstances, or resources, or if you had prior needs that were unmet. Even though your budget can be changed, it's important to note that your budget cannot be increased for any of these reasons: to pay for an independent facilitator, to pay for your financial management service or FMS, to add funds for services that are not needed, to pay for services or supports not funded in the traditional service system. You might have had no services used in the last 12 months. That could be because you're new to the regional center system, and that's okay. You can still enter self-determination and get set up with your regional center. You do not have to wait 12 months before entering the program. A budget can still be developed for you if you've never had regional center services before, you use 0 services in the past 12 months, you have been receiving services for less than 12 full months, you have been receiving or using fewer services than you really need, or COVID-19 prevented you from using services. So there's no reason to wait to start in the self-determination program if that's what you want to do. The self-determination individual budget is developed through a process that we've broken down into 5 steps. Step 1, past 12 months. Step 2, unmet needs. Step 3, new needs. Step 4, non-continuing services. Step 5, individual budget. Now let's take a closer look at each of these steps. Step 1, past 12 months. The starting point for your individual budget is the amount that was spent on your services in the past 12 months. This is the amount that was actually spent, not what was authorized or approved. This amount can be found in a document usually called an expenditure report or annual cost statement, although it might have a different name. You can request this from your service coordinator. The services on your expenditure report will be listed by their service code. Prior to completing this worksheet, be sure to review your report with your service coordinator so that they can explain what each service code means for you. Here's an example of an expenditure report from San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. The report you received from your regional center might look different, but it will probably contain most, if not all, of the same information. Let's take a look. You can find your name, the start and end date of the past 12-month period reflected in the report, the services you received listed by their service codes, which months you received each service, how much of each service was authorized or approved by the regional center, how much of each service you actually used, the amount spent on each service each month, and the total amount spent on each service for the full 12-month period. And lastly, the total amount spent on all of your services in the 12-month period. This is the starting amount for your individual budget. Now take out your worksheet. Look at your expenditure report and write down each of the service codes listed and the name of the service or service provider that it represents. Remember, if you don't know what a service code means on your report, ask your service coordinator for help. Think about whether or not this service met your needs. This will set the foundation for the conversation with your regional center about your budget. At the bottom of your worksheet, write down the total amount that was spent on your services. This is a starting point for your individual budget. Step 2, unmet needs. Unmet needs are needs listed in your prior IPP that were partially or entirely unmet in the past 12 months. These include services listed on your expenditure report that you only received in part, and services that do not appear on your expenditure report because you did not receive them, even though you needed them. The amount that the regional center would have spent to address these needs in the traditional system should be added to your budget amount. Some common reasons for unmet needs are: you couldn't find a provider, you were waiting for a provider to have an open spot in their program, the provider was far from your home, so it was difficult for you to access the service, the provider did not have a staff person who spoke your language, so you were unable to use that service. You did not know the regional center could provide a certain service. In order to identify your unmet needs, ask yourself, were you able to use the full amount of services authorized in your last IPP? If you did not use the full amount, what were the reasons? Were there services that started or ended in the middle of the 12-month period? If services started within the 12-month period, would you be likely to use these services for the entire 12 months in the next year? Do you still have these needs? If services ended within the 12-month period, why did they end? Do you no longer need the services? Or are those needs being met in a different way? Were there services listed in your IPP that you didn't use at all? If so, they might not show up on your expenditure report. Now review the services that appear on your expenditure report from the list on page 1 of your worksheet. Were there any services that you didn't receive for the full 12 months? If so, why? Write this down in the first box on your worksheet. Remember, if you didn't use any of the services at all, they won't show up on your expenditure report. In the second box on your worksheet, list the needs that were mentioned in your prior IPP, but for which you received 0 services in the past 12 months. This could be because no services were offered to meet your need, or because you were unable to use the services that were offered. Step 3, new needs. When life changes, so do your needs. The term new needs refers to both new and newly identified needs. New needs are typically the result of changes in your life. Newly identified needs are ones that existed previously, but were not mentioned or addressed in your IPP. New and newly identified needs may be discovered through person-centered planning. The amount that the regional center would have spent to address these needs in the traditional system or traditional services should be added to your budget amount. Some reasons for new needs include leaving or entering school, losing or getting a job, change in health, change in family need or family's ability to provide support, moving into your own apartment or moving back in with family, change in available generic resources like school or insurance, or you no longer need a service that you used to need. Did something in your life change and therefore your needs changed? On page 3 of your worksheet, list the new services or needs that you would like to include in your individual budget. Remember, your budget can only include services that exist in the traditional system. Step 4, non-continuing services. Non-continuing services refer to the services that are not expected to continue. This can include services that you no longer need, services that are ending because they were replaced by a different service that will better meet your needs, or some one-time expenses. The cost of these services will be removed from your budget amount. Some examples of one-time expenses include home modification, auto modification, durable medical equipment, and initial person-centered planning services for transition to SDP. Now review the services that appear on your expenditure report from the list on page 1. Are there any services that you no longer need? This can include services that already ended or that will end in the coming year. Write them down on page 4 of your worksheet. Step 5, individual budget. Now that you've completed your worksheet, discuss it with your service coordinator. The regional center is responsible for calculating your individual budget, including any necessary changes. The regional center should explain how they calculated your budget. Be sure to ask questions until you understand. You can agree to the budget right away or take time to think about it. If you and the regional center cannot reach an agreement about your budget, you have the right to appeal and go to a fair hearing, just like you do in the traditional system. Here are some recommended questions to ask. How many hours of each service did you calculate in your budget? What rate did you use to come up with the dollar amount for each service? Is that the current rate? Is the rate expected to change? Make sure to ask all of your questions before agreeing to the proposed budget. When you are in agreement with your budget, you will sign it. Then a regional center representative must sign the budget to certify that they would have spent that amount on your services in the coming year if you had stayed in the traditional system. Once everyone has signed, your budget is certified. Thank you for watching this review of the individual budget for the self-determination program. Although it's optional, I urge you to download and use the worksheet to assist you in getting your budget certified. Thanks for watching and good luck.